I
Yeah,
feel like
Chris really sold it with Escape from Dagu. Oh, I'm sorry. Go. Sorry.
I, I I feel like it's a great time when Disney has a bad day. We just do the Legends podcast, and they had a bad week the other week, so we're back with the Legends podcast. I'm your host Jeremy. I got Dylan with his piss couch. Brian decided to show up again, and Matt figured out how a computer works. So it's
Well, I'm Noah today
you
until he
are
gets there.
yeah. Quality autism has decided not to wake up, so we're just going to go on time because this is a tough one, but we're going to get through some news real quick because I want to talk about Disney's bad week with Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny doing terrible at Cannes uh, and getting initially a 38% on Rotten Tomatoes from critics, although it's gone up to a 51 as of today.
Let, let me ask you this. I know the answer. Are you going to see it?
Yes. Yes. I mean,
I am too. Yeah.
Wow.
yeah,
Like
but
gluttons for
you can
punishment.
tell by my content lately of reviewing all those Indiana Jones Bantam books.
Yeah. I'm going to go see Raiders of the Lost Ark June 7th in theaters when they
Is
bring
it
it
coming
back.
back?
It's coming back in theaters. A
Oh,
few of
I'm
us are going
going
to
to
see it because they're going to let you remember what good it used to be before you watch the garbage that is what it is now.
Anybody
Did you
else
guys
hearing
get-
gunshots? I'm hearing
and-
gunshots.
yeah. every week, I'll be watching another one. Last Crusade. I mean, Temple of Doom, Last Crusade, and for the second time ever, I've only seen Crystal Skull once in theaters. I've never seen it since. I'll watch it again later on in the month of June, right before I watch the Dial of Destiny.
I'll tell you what, Matt. I rewatched Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and I liked it. I didn't love it. I liked it. And I watched all of Young Indiana Jones, and it references Young Indiana Jones in it, and that gives me points.
Oh, should I go back and watch Young Indiana Jones? Oh, that's actually I might do that. Now, if they in Dial of Destiny, if they take out his left eye at the end of the movie, sold. Sold. If they connect it to Young Indiana Jones, sold.
I doubt they will. It's Kathleen Kennedy we're talking about.
No writer is that smart. Because
No.
the person who wrote this script did not watch a single Indiana Jones movie. I promise you that.
Did you see the Willow show? Because
Did you hear about WandaVision, the Doctor Strange 2, when she was talking to the writers? She said, guys, this doesn't go with what we did on the TV show. None of the writers had watched the show.
Yeah.
Because why study? Why study?
Yeah, why? No one cares. No one cares.
Yeah. What were you saying, though? I'm sorry.
Did you see the Willow show?
No.
It's one of the worst things I've ever seen, and apparently Disney Plus thought so too, and they pulled it. You cannot stream Willow on Disney Plus anymore. And also, they closed down the Star Wars hotel.
Yeah, that one I have heard of.
1 week.
That one got around a lot of circles. Even I heard about that one.
This all happened in 1 week. It's just a bad day. It was a bad week for Kathleen Kennedy once again.
Mm-hmm.
Miss, I can't actually get a project off the ground anymore unless it's a cheap, terrible TV show.
Okay. So I got Young Indiana Jones. I'm ready to go. That's a good idea. In between the movies, I'll watch a couple episodes of Young Indiana Jones. That's how I'll pass my time. That show is so weird. I remember season 2 being better. Season 1, it was like a kid mystery show. He's just, it's just a kid. And then
are you talking about how the DVDs are set up where they actually put the episodes in chronological order, or when it aired and they just threw them wherever they felt like?
Oh, well, I had the DVD, so I watched maybe 1 or 2 when it aired, but it aired at a weird time and we never got to watch it that much. But I watched it on DVD, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, what happened to Indiana Jones? Because he has eye, patch on. I was like, oh, wow. And he'd tell a story about this or that, and go back. I remember the one TV episode I saw was when he was trying to dig into the mailbox, and the mailman said, hey, that's illegal. That's a fine. He went, no, I need to get something out of there. And you think it's mail, But it turns out at the end of the episode, it was just a sandwich. He accidentally dropped his sandwich in there because he's a doofus when he threw the mail in.
Yeah.
He's trying to get a sandwich out. So it's just little anecdotes like that, in between, the what are they called? The bookends in between the episode.
Yeah.
While he finishes up the story, they end whatever the cute little thing was that was happening at the beginning.
Although they re-edited them in the last DVD releases to make them 90-minute movies, because there was a couple unaired episodes.
Wasn't Harrison Ford in one?
Yes, and that's one of the better ones.
Yeah,
that's Mystery of the Blues. There's also Treasure of the Peacock's Eye. I remember when that aired because that was in '96.
Yeah,
so it was one of my earliest memories is watching that.
Yeah,
but they re-edited them and they cut Old Indy out because there's one bookend where his daughter shows up. And Steven Spielberg said, I don't want him having a daughter. I want him having a son. So they retconned. So to put.
Oh, so I remember that. And then voila, Mutt.
Mm-hmm. So
interesting. And then now he has a daughter anyway. This one,
she's someone's daughter.
She's someone's daughter,
and she's better than Indy.
I'm guessing Indiana Jones isn't married again because Disney can't keep anything straight continuity wise.
Well, what I read the other day. Well, I say read. I watched one of Ryan Kennel's videos, and he was talking about a leak that he and Marianne are getting a divorce because Mutt died in Vietnam. So yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Why would they get a divorce over that?
I don't know. Anyway,
go crazy.
Who knows? Who knows? I know that they never wanted to work with him again.
No, I know that.
No one wants to work with Sean.
That was still when he was the hotness in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, so our topic today is the top 10 best Star Wars authors. I'm just letting you all know that I have a couple ties in mind.
You're going to list me 30 people? Like Matt's top 10 books that was actually 50 books?
I couldn't.
I added a book series in there. I don't have any regrets.
So I made a rule for myself. I don't know if you guys did this. If the author only wrote one thing, their track record got so bad that more of their work was terrible over good, or they wrote all their books are basically the same type of story, they got put in honorable mentions. Not saying that they're bad, they're worth discussing, and I will discuss them before I say my number one. But anyway, who would like to start?
So my personal rules were much different than yours. So this should be an interesting list because we're really not going to agree, I guess. But I was just going through a list of the books and kind of remembering, thinking about what I remembered from each of them and kind of what they contributed. And I'm thinking, are we just going to start at number 10?
Yes.
I'm actually going to put Salvatore at the end there at number 10. There's only one contribution to the expanded universe, but it was such a big contribution in that he kicked off the New Jedi Order.
He has two.
He had two. He had a second one. What was the other one?
The second one was the episode 2 novelization.
And he's in an honorable mention of mine.
Okay.
He just missed the cut.
He's on my list as well.
Not read the episode 2 novelization, so
you should.
I'm not familiar with that one.
I'll talk about it when I get to him in my list. But it's fantastic.
Universe stuff.
But that's where I had him, and that was my number 10. Anybody else?
My number 10. My number 10 swapped a lot because it's hard to find 10 authors that don't have a blemish on their record somewhere. So this swapped like 3 or 4 times, but the one who ended up taking that last spot was John Jackson Miller. And so the thing with John Jackson Miller, I have not read the Knight Errant comics, and I've not read Lost Tribe of the Sith. So 2 of his 3 bad stories I have not read, which is probably why I have the opinion that I have of him. But Kenobi is fantastic. KOTOR is fantastic. Knight Errant is boring, but also, again, KOTOR War is a story that did not need to get made. So he does have that against his records. But again, for a top 10, I think his good generally outweighs the bad that he wrote. As inconsistent as he was, he had some high peaks, which is why I think he got the 10 spot for me.
Okay. Matt, or Angry German.
Yeah, I didn't make the list, so I'm making it now.
I can go real quick because I have a two-way
I'm
tie
sorry.
at number 10. I have a tie.
Shocker.
My number 10 is Michael Stackpole and Kathy Tyers. Michael Stackpole wrote some of the best Star Wars novels that involve dogfighting in particular, and really he wrote pilots really well. I think that's my big thing with Michael Stackpole. I mean, I have a tattoo dedicated to Michael Stackpole and the Rogue Squadron story, but his comic book writing is very lacking. The only noteworthy one, in my opinion, is Mara Jade by the Emperor's Hand, but that's co-written with Timothy Zahn. But he wrote Union, which is one of the plagues of the EU. He wrote I, Jedi, which is the prime example of why you shouldn't write in first person. And that just kind of lowered it. And I really love all the authors in my top 10. So being at number 10 isn't a bad thing. And as for Kathy Tyers, she didn't write enough stuff, in my opinion, and I think that's her biggest fault. She has some of the most creative ideas of the Bantam era. I really enjoyed Truce of Bakura. Balance Point is probably in my top 5 New Jedi Order novels. I just read We Don't Do Weddings from the Tales of the Mos Eisley Cantina, and that just put her on the list. Because that's
really
one of the
good
best Star Wars short stories ever written. And what a way to lead in a series of short stories. So I put Kathy Tyers there.
Kathy
Matt.
didn't make my list.
I doubt she would have made most people's lists, but I think
she's
I
not on
wish-
mine either.
I wish she had written more. I think she had some really creative stuff, and it's a shame that she's one of the many authors who wrote New Jedi Order that didn't come back to Del Rey.
So you're sure you didn't add a 0 there, right? Like that shouldn't have just been like a 1 and not a 0.
All right, mine is obviously Elizabeth Hand from the Young Boba Fett. I'm totally kidding. It is Kathy Tyers, actually.
Okay.
Mine was Kathy Tyers. Kathy Tyers knew how to be on there because I just like her uniqueness. She wrote a few short stories.
Yeah, she wrote
for
for
the magazine, some of the things, and they're just interesting. They're just different takes. They're things that it's so different and different in a good way, meaning there's one in the Star Wars Gamer where it's a short story about this band of musicians who go from planet to planet. They're secretly supporting the rebellion cause, but you don't know it. But there's a rebel agent in each one of their shows wherever they go on tour, and they're playing certain notes, and they sing a key phrase, and those notes are the code to what's going. That's how they're passing codes to each other and from cell to cell. And I was like, that's, it's just to set up a role-playing event. But I was like, wow, that is really cool and really interesting. I mean, just different perspectives. Again, what she did with Truce of Bakura, it should have been the Empire versus Rebellion round 2, right? I mean, she could have done that. No one would have faulted her for it. In fact, everyone would have wanted that. No, man. She went with dinosaurs with ping pong paddles that shoot lasers out of them. Get out of here. Get out of here. And Balance Point was there's a few things in Balance Point I really like. Jason finds his balls. you know, which is a
Jason
great
is insufferable
scene.
for like the first half of
You
that
don't,
book.
you
I'm
don't know
sorry.
how long I have hated Jason. I
Mhm.
hated that he seemed like the weak one in Young Jay Knights. You know, he's like the poor man's Aquaman combined with Animal Man, if anyone knows that. I mean, Jeremy knows
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
But he makes the stupid jokes. Everyone rolls right. He's just cheese. And then when he gets a New Order, I didn't want to use the food. I didn't like it. And I'm like, oh, I want to slap the taste out of his mouth. And then finally, not only does he use the Force, but he's so super powerful that when he finally uses it, blows Stanislaw out of the building, you know, breaks his ankle, embarrasses him. You know, I mean, there's other good moments in there too. So Kathy Tyers, really underrated, really underrated. She never wrote anything great in there. I get that, but we had a different, fresh perspective. She didn't take the obvious path. She could have, and probably more people would have known about her. But I like the path she took. So that's why she gets my number 10. Do you want me to go ahead and just a little snake order? I can do 9.
No,
Before you do that,
is what
Because I
based
don't want to
on
keep going last.
sales. What
Yeah.
the general populace thinks are the top 10 authors.
Yeah, so I have what the masses think based on user reviews and ratings. Their number 10 agrees with you, Jeremy, at Michael Stackpole. He had a 3.94 cumulative star ratings out of 5. 87,894 people left a rating on one of his books. So Michael Stackpole is your masses pick, what the masses think is the 10th best author. There's going to be one, by the way, in the top 10 that the masses pick that I don't think anyone's going to agree with. I can't wait to see y'all's reaction to it.
Okay.
Barbara Hamley. All right, let's go.
Brian, what's number 9?
You sure you don't want to go with Matt first on this one?
No, I want to go with you first.
All right. Well, I have Christy Golden on this, and I have to readily admit that my choice on this one isn't entirely just because of her Expanded Universe contributions. I've read some of her stuff outside of it, and I do think that she does have a pretty good writing style overall. But she was mostly Fate of the was it Fate of the Jedi? I'm trying.
Mhm.
I think it was Fate
She
of the
replaced Karen Travis on Fate of the
That's
Jedi.
right. It was three books there. So
Yeah,
it's
she
not
wrote book 2, 5, and 8.
That's right. So that's actually who I had at 9 specifically, just because I know her work beyond the Expanded Universe, and I know her writing style, and I didn't mind it too much in Fate of the Jedi. I thought it was good.
I
also
will
like
tell
in
you.
Fate of the Jedi, where every third book seemed to stumble, but yeah, okay.
I will tell you why she's not on my list at all. It's her writing is fine. I prefer her over Karen Travis. She was a better choice, but she did John Ostrander and Jan Drizzo dirty when she wrote Dark Disciples by crediting Dave Filoni for the creation of Quinlan Voss.
So that gets into the comic book side of things, and that's where I don't have as much experience. So that would make some sense if there were some issues there that I'm not aware of.
Oh, we covered it on Legends podcast when it happened
Years ago.
Years ago. So we don't need to bring that up. But she didn't. I couldn't put her on the worst EU list because arguably she's only had one bad Star Wars book in my opinion, and that was her last Star Wars book where she had to write a Battlefront 2 tie-in to the EA Battlefront, and it was terrible, and had to bring in a D-list character from Dave Filoni's Clone Wars as like a what a twist character when you could tell who it was immediately. Spoilers: it's Lux Bond Terrier, Ahsoka's kind of love interest, is a rebel terrorist, and the villains, the Empire, who are the heroes in this book, kill him. It doesn't matter. That book sucked ass.
That's from the Disney canon, though, right?
Yes, and I have a few.
Didn't read any of that.
I have a few Star Wars authors who wrote in both canons on this list because certain authors were contracted to do so, and I don't consider it too blemishing on their careers. Dylan, what's your number 9?
My number 9 is Greg Keyes. I think he's really underappreciated when it comes to the New Jedi Order authors.
Mhm.
Writing the Edge of Victory duology and then the Final Prophecy. He was the first one. Granted, Tahiri, of course, had been in the Young Jedi Knights, but for a lot of people, it was the Edge of Victory duology that was their first introduction to Tahiri. I think
Mhm.
he handled her and Anakin's relationship quite well and did a lot to kind of build it up, kind of building off of that. And then later on with Final Prophecy, that was where a lot of like the only real problem I really have with that with novel was Naminor's basically going back on his entire story arc during the Force Heretic trilogy and just siding with the Overlord anyway. But other than that, I do think it's great. There's a lot fewer characters in it, so it kind of really focuses in on what's happening on Xenobus Picot and like uncovering, I guess, the conspiracy behind why like the Vong attacked when they did. And I think he did a great job with that. And I think of the New Jedi Order authors that, like you said, with Kathy Tyers, that didn't really get another shot. I think he is largely underappreciated in that.
Yeah, he barely didn't make he would have been number 11 if I had done a top 20.
I could see putting him actually higher on the list than I have him right now. But while you're doing that, I was just looking up what other works he did and didn't realize he actually has done some Babylon 5 stuff, which I do like Babylon 5. And apparently also did some work for the Elder Scrolls, which I didn't realize either, which is always fun.
I think he's also written for Halo.
Was it Halo? Because that's what I was looking for.
When we were doing our EU March Madness on best authors, Dylan and I had this conversation earlier. I mean, a couple of years back, where Greg Keyes is really just underrated.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but I agree with what you said.
I guess my number 9 is Mary Jo Duffy. Going way back. I'll tell you what, she held the EU together in the original dark times. Every one of her comics is engaging. She wrote for the original Marvel series, and I highly recommend her stuff. She doesn't get enough credit for that series. Usually it goes to Archie Goodwin, and there was another a prominent author in between who I think is okay. And Noah's not here to yell at me for what he did. I just don't think his stuff was that good. But Mary Jo Duffy really was writing that series when no one cared anymore. It's a real shame because there's some really good stuff in there.
Was she comic books only, or did she do other stuff?
She primarily did the Marvel stuff. That's what I know her from.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with I think Archie Goodwin did a great job. The other guy you're talking about did the newspaper strips that you're talking about?
No, he took over the comics between Empire and Jedi.
Because there's someone else who's pretty good, and I can't remember who it was. What's that guy person's name?
I can't remember.
Who did the early tales, Dylan? The early adventures.
The early adventures? I don't even know that.
Oh, come on.
Oh, from the classic Star Wars, the comic strip? I can't remember who did that. I know Archie Goodwin wrote some of those.
All right, then maybe it's Archie Goodwin all around. It seems like there was someone else.
If it was early Marvel, it was probably.
That I thought did a good job.
It's probably not Alan Moore who wrote Devil Worlds. I think he was in my top. I think he was number 5 in my worst EU authors. But anyway, Matt, what's your number 9?
By the way, Goodwin, I agree with Archie Goodwin. Russ Manning. That's what I'm talking about. Russ Manning did a good job too.
Yeah.
He was another good author. He did the early adventures. But I agree with Mary Jo Duffy completely. So underrated. No one cared. She was writing that she cared. There was cheesy stuff in there. She was trying to. The story at the end, it gets a little cheesy. The artwork gets a little wonky. But that's because they were pouring less money into it, and it wasn't doing as well as sales. But she was trying to keep together a good storyline. She had not checked out. You could have had someone who checked out during that turn because it wasn't cool to write Star Wars anymore. It was fading away, and she was still a fan. And I agree. I think she did a pretty good job. So unsung hero there. My number 9, Brian Daley.
Okay, he is tied at I think my number 5.
Ooh, He only wrote 3, which I guess is why he may be down a little bit here, even though that doesn't make sense. I probably would have put some more people in trilogies, but I mean, no one has gunslinging, killing Han Solo, shoot first, ask questions later, and you won't ever see that person again. Another reason Brian Daley works is, man, the friendship between he and Chewbacca just shines in that trilogy. It shines. I mean, there's, and I reading it a second time, Han looks over at Chewie in the cockpit and just kind of, smirks after someone on the ship says something, and Chewbacca woofs back something. He said, "You said it, Chewie." He said, "What did he say?" He said, "Nothing for you." And I just like, because they got this little companionship, camaraderie, and it's not really. You look at the expanded universe as a whole, and yes, they're friends, but those little moments like that just shows that they're thinking on the same level. They're a team. They work together. They're great. And then, of course, Blue Max and Bullocks are just perfect. They're just so good. It's such a shame that no one decided to bring them back into the expanded universe, So,
Yeah.
but yeah, there you go, Brian Daley.
Okay. And Dylan, who's the number 9 author based on the masses?
Based on the masses, by the way, I only have the numbers for the adult authors, so there's going to be no comic ones. But the masses, like Aaron Alston, 3.95 out of 5 stars, and 92,094 people have left a rating or review on one of his books.
Okay.
Interesting. Cool.
All right, you're number 8, Brian.
Yes.
All right. So for number 8, it's a name that's already been mentioned. I had John Jackson Miller there.
Okay.
I don't think we need to rehash that conversation, but in particular, obviously the Kenobi novel stands out for me.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Though wasn't he also involved on the Essential Guide to Warfare?
I don't think so. I didn't see his
Sure?
name on it.
Okay, I'll double check on that later, but yeah.
I really should have put John Jackson Miller's on my list. I really should have put him on there but what Dylan said is exactly right. I mean, it's either a home run or a strikeout. I mean, it's just so night and day. Knight Errant, the book and the comic books are just horrible. They're just they're among the worst. I mean, the spectrum is so wild. It's so, I mean, if Knight Errant was forgettable and so-so or mediocre, but he writes some of the worst. It is some of the worst stuff. I did a top 10 worst comic books. Knight Errant would definitely be in those. High on those, because there's so many things that they get wrong from the story. They keep changing. The artwork's terrible. They get the coloring wrong. I mean, I'm guessing no one cared, or just no one knew the difference. It's so bad. It's so
no
bad.
one was reading
But
that
then,
stuff at that point.
Knights of the Old Republic is one of the best comic series out there, bar none. Like, I think it was number 3 for me. But if someone says, Matt, it's number 1, I can't disagree with that, because it could be number 1 for me too at any given day. I love it. I love that every single character is excellent. There wasn't one character the whole time where I didn't say, nah, I don't care about that person. There was not Knights of the Old Republic. I love them all. And then Kenobi, just brilliant. I mean, it's a Western. He did it.
It's a very interesting thing that you hear about Miller. Is he's very, very much on both ends of the spectrum when it comes to what he writes, and it's just like, and it's almost universal, that opinion.
How do you do that? I don't understand. It's like, who shows up today, Jekyll or Hyde? But I think he's fantastic.
Okay.
All right. Dylan.
On worst comic book author, small time, you just named number 1 right there. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Brian Floyd, yeah. My number 8 is also one we've talked about before. Michael Stackpole.
Okay.
Yeah, I put him higher because, again, he's more consistent than John Jackson Miller, certainly. And although Greg Keyes is a little more consistent than him, Stackpole does have, like, again, more under his belt.
Yes.
This is a kind of conflict within myself when I come to authors. There's quality and consistency, and then there's like, total volume of stuff, right? It's like, balancing those kind of those three things of like when you're ranking authors is very difficult. But yeah, Stackpole, for all the reasons I think you guys have already mentioned, takes my number 8 spot.
Okay. My number 8 is a two-way tie because I just thought of this author. I'm sorry. It's a tie between Kevin J. Anderson and Paul S. Kemp.
Really? Paul S. Kemp?
And I'll tell you why. Because Paul S. Kemp is let me get into Kevin J. Anderson here before I get into my conflict with Paul S. Kemp. Kevin J. Anderson, I think if Timothy Zahn really brought the EU back, it's Kevin J. Anderson that really flushed it out, in my opinion. When it comes to Jedi Academy, really taking over Tales of the Jedi, just his contributions to the EU really shaped things going forward. And he was willing to play ball with everyone. Hence why iJedi exists. And I just think he was an overall really cool guy. I'm trying not to bring Dune into it, but his Dune books are pretty good.
I think it's fair to mention there are other works outside the expanded universe. It's fair.
His Dune stuff's fun. His Saga Seven Sons, I do enjoy that. I think overall, he's a solid author, both in comic book and in novel, and his Young Jedi Knight stuff is just wonderful. And I can't not mention it. He defined so many characters. Even Darksaber. Darksaber has its moments of good. You know, I have issues with the whole Barbara Hambley stuff. It's just too strange for me. Children of, in my opinion, was it Planet of Twilight? It's one of the worst Star Wars books ever written.
Yeah.
But Darksaber, the moment when Luke runs into the Wampa that he fought in Empire Strikes Back, and he kicks its ass, it's just one of the best Star Wars moments ever.
I can name 10 books worse than Planet of Twilight.
I don't know.
I'm not saying Planet of Twilight was great, but I can name 10 books.
Fair enough.
Better than worse than Planet of Twilight.
But
so what is your number 8 then?
Well, let me explain my Paul S. Kemp thing here.
He had Paul S. Kemp. I thought he was talking about his number 1 this whole time because he's talking about Kevin J. Anderson.
Paul S. Kemp is a humongous asshole on Twitter. I can't not say that. His Twitter is just awful. Like,
honestly, a lot of authors are like that. Don't go on Twitter. Don't meet your heroes, folks.
Yeah. Not everyone's Kevin J. Anderson on Twitter, who seems to be a pretty nice dude on there. But he Deceived. What a great Old Republic story. Very different. Well worth your time to read. But I really like Crosscurrent and Riptide. They are some weird Star Wars, and if any of you know me, you know I love the strange.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like the Jaden Core got his time in the spotlight, and I just think that Paul S. Kemp added something in a time when I think the Star Wars was starting to get stagnant. He did something a little different. So anyway, that's my number 8. Matt.
I'm going to tie with Dylan here. I picked Stackpole at number 8 too. I think he wrote an excellent X-Wing series. It was very good. He continued on writing it. He did good in the New Jedi Order as well. I think where he stumbles and where he falls down my list slightly was the comic book wasn't as good. It's not terrible, but some parts are. Some story arcs are pretty good. Battleground Tatooine probably being the highlight of the series. Mm-hmm. But then some really bad. The last story arc they had, just terrible. But then you have the Making of Baron Fell, which is just excellent. Yeah, what an excellent comic book. So I mean, he kind of stumbles around a little bit in the comic books. He only stumbled once, in my opinion, of the books. Everyone knows that. But that stumble is the top favorite of everyone else's. So
Actually,
like
I don't
said,
think. I think out of all those group, I think I'm the only one that actually enjoyed that book.
Yeah,
okay,
And,
well,
and
no,
obviously,
no,
we're
no.
talking
There's
about
the
a
majority.
Jedi.
No, the majority of Star Wars fans do enjoy it.
So I do have a question. I wonder, Dylan, because we already mentioned that he's number 10 overall. I wonder if you took that book out of that, where would he rank overall?
He would be ranked lower. The masses like iJedi.
Overall,
The masses love I
so it
Jedi.
actually brings him up, is what you're saying. That's interesting.
I Jedi is his.
It is.
Probably most popular one.
Hold on. Let me. I have the calcs. Let me look. iJedi is Stackpole's third highest rated book,
Oh
behind
wow!
Back to War and Rogue Squadron.
Interesting.
Oh well, yeah, okay.
Interesting. Well, that's one of the few authors that I have seen or had seen prior to getting involved in the Expanded Universe movement. Any
As a
comics
person,
from
he's great to talk to. I love talking.
he was
to
fun.
him.
He's also one of the few authors I've met.
He's awesome to talk to. I agree with that. I think he's a great guy.
iJedi is also ranked 35th overall amongst all the 160 adult novels.
Wow. Yeah, a lot of people like it.
As for the masses, I'm very sorry, Noah. When you eventually watch this back, we missed out on getting your reaction to this. But the number 8 best-selling, or the number 8 most popular author, is everyone's favorite Clone Wars writer, Karen Miller. 3.95 with 6,732. I don't understand it. Who? Literally who?
Okay.
She must have a lot of family members with a lot of separate accounts who really wanted her to get kudos for it.
By the way, that is low. 60. She wrote 3 books, 6,700. The average for a single book of the adult authors in ratings is 5,000. So her 3 books together. Again, I don't think a lot of people actually read these books, and the people that read these books were probably TCW fans who actually left ratings for it. That's my explanation to what happened. Yeah. But I was legitimately shocked when I put this together, and I was like, how is Karen Miller better than Aaron Olson and Michael Stackpole?
That makes no sense.
Wow.
Okay, moving on to number 7, Brian.
So I've gone back and forth between my 6 and 7. I kind of swapped them around a few times during this conversation, but I'm going to be putting Troy Denning there in number 7 for myself.
Honorable mention for me.
Interesting. Honorable mention. Yeah, obviously Troy Denning is a big name for the Expanded Universe for lots of reasons. I think I'd rather let everybody else talk about this one than myself, droning on and on. But in particular, obviously, a New Jedi Order fan, so he's going to be there.
Wow. Bunch of Denning haters here.
Oh no, Denning
honorable mention.
I will get into this. Denning has his moments of really good, but it's the offhanded sex pervert stuff that bothers me greatly. It doesn't make sense a lot of the time, and it takes me out of the story, and I'm like, really? Why is this here? Noah's not here. Noah throw a tantrum. Put Denning in your top 10, or even brought him up as an honorable mention. No, Denning's grasp of the EU is, he's one of the greats. He really knows his continuity. But it's the sex pervert stuff, and I don't like Saba Sabatine. It's like one of the most hated pet characters.
Wow,
really?
I do not
like Saba.
I don't.
Wow, Saba Sabatine, you hate it? Wow.
I don't hate. I just don't like.
Interesting.
You ultimately despise. Wow. Not listening very well. Go ahead.
All right, Dylan.
Well, moving on to someone who's not controversial at all and never had got Twitter canceled before Twitter existed. My number 7 is R.A. Salvatore.
Interesting.
Wow.
Again, a lot of
another honorable mention for me.
And again, like you said, I think starting off New Jedi Order with Vector Prime, he did a great job with that. He unfortunately, as I kind of alluded to, got the bad hand and was
Yep.
the author who will forever go down as the one who killed Chewbacca, even though it wasn't his decision. But what really stole it over the top for me was the Episode 2 novelization. I think
Yeah.
the Attack of the Clones novelization is very underrated. It gets overshadowed a lot by the Revenge of the Sith novelization, which isn't fair because the Revenge of the Sith novelization is like the greatest novelization ever made, right? You're
Mhm.
always going to come second to it. But when you read the novelization, it's fine as a novelization, but the one scene that really stood out to me was the scene when Shmi dies in Anakin's hands, and like it's just like it goes to like this super like it's like third person, but it's like third person super limited, ordering on first person, where it's just all the thoughts and emotions that are running through his head, just like rapid fire, and what he's like, and like his different how his like state of mind in like nanoseconds just changes, and his like really puts into perspective like the reason why he did what he did, and also like really tied in again with like what we see in the vision in the actual movie when like Yoda has the vision. You can hear Qui-Gon's voice of like kind of like confirming that no, that was like actually Qui-Gon like reaching out through the nether realms of the Force, trying to stop him and like calm him down because it was, but like he just couldn't.
Yeah.
Fantastic scene.
I mean, can we talk about that he crushes a bunch of Tusken Raiders with a boulder? Like one of the best things I've ever read. Compare it to in Terry Brooks' Phantom Menace novel, where he saves a Tusken Raider.
Mhm.
I think that Ari Salvatore read Terry Brooks' novelization and added things in, and I agree with you. It's probably the most underrated of the Star Wars novelizations.
Interesting.
Wow.
Okay, my
Yeah.
number 7, Aaron Alston.
Okay.
Aaron Alston is like puts the best humor in Star Wars. It's what first comes to mind with him. Some of the stuff like in Mercy Kill, some of the funniest.
Oh, Mercy Kill's great.
He'll put a joke in, and you
Yeah.
could tell that he had a great old time putting that in. I in my opinion, he really held the post Jedi stuff together. With Legacy of the Force and Fate of the Jedi, his stuff, when looking back on it, his books are my favorites of both those series. It's a real shame that he passed when he did, because I after Mercy Kill, which I actually went back and read recently, I really wanted more. I
Mhm.
think he was going to start building to something and have a whole new X-Wing series with that, and I think
And
that would have been real interesting.
Mercy Kill is also just a love letter to Ray Squadron fans because
Mhm.
it's like it takes place so like far into the past, but it's very much like the it's like in those like sports movies when or stuff when it's like it's a historical movie and then like there's the ending montage. It's like and this is where this guy did, and like he would go on to like graduate and then do this and this and this. It's very much that, but it's like an actual book of like where all the Ray Squadron, like where all the old Ray Squadron members who are still alive, what they're doing, what their kids are doing, because a lot of their kids are in it, what they've been up to, and it's just like great. It's like, oh wow, they um Min and what's her, I forget his name, but like they actually had like a successful marriage and like had a family, and it's like, oh great, I love to see that. It's like all these characters that you read and you enjoyed in the Ray Squadron, and getting to see like through all the chaos that happens in the post Jedi storyline. Yeah, they're still there. They had good lives. They've been taken care of.
Yeah, and who to take over the X-Wing mantle than Aaron Alston? I can't
Mhm.
picture anyone else.
Looking at the list of authors that I had in front of me, I don't think any of them could have done it better than Alston over Stackpole. That's valid question.
This leads me to something I wanted Dylan to do, but I forgot.
Hmm.
Dylan, how do you feel that Aaron Alston isn't part of the Essential Legends collection?
Well, he is now. They finally made Ray. the most recent waves of the most recent leak has Wraith Squadron in it. Over a year after Back to War, in 4 waves they finally added Wraith Squadron.
We need that unabridged audiobook.
Yeah.
They're never going to do unabridged audiobooks again because
I
that
know.
will make them money, and they don't care to make money anymore.
Because that was the only thing that was. Here's what I think. That was the only thing that was actually bringing in people who already own these books and know better to to the series. And now that we don't care anymore, they can push stuff through like, oh, I don't know, copy pasting Drew Karpyshyn's without the author section into Wedge's Gamble and just replacing Drew Karpyshyn with Michael Stackpole, or crediting Michael Stackpole in Back to War as having written Vector Prime. And also in the other 3 X-Wing books that he wrote, saying that there's actually a 3rd Dark Tide book called just New Jedi Order Dark Tide. Oh yeah, and also stating that Isar's Revenge is actually a Wraith Squadron book for some reason. Without us involved, we would never have found those things. They can slip those things right past us, and we never notice. I've been on a warpath against the Essential Legends collection recently. I'm sorry.
The Essential Legends collection sucks ass, and I'll tell you why.
I posted a video of how they select them. We got some inside footage of Del Rey picking the waves. It was amazing stuff. It was like groundbreaking.
It explains so much.
Yeah, it broke the internet when it came out.
They are the worst of bound books. They are so cheap in how they're made, and they're more expensive than the mass market paperback. And I think Del Rey's just so stupid to get rid of mass market paperbacks.
Mm-hmm. And they are getting rid of it because, again, if you go to BarnesandNoble.com, you cannot buy mass market paperbacks for books that have an Essential Legends collection printing. They're still bringing them in stores for now, but if you do online orders, which, let's be real, most people these days are ordering things online, and you go through Barnes & Noble website, you can't get a mass market paperback of the Thrawn trilogy anymore. What was the point of getting those new covers? They're replacing the cover every 5 years, and now we can't get the old ones back.
It's stupid. It's just stupid. And it's like everything that Disney Star Wars touches is just a mess.
Yeah. Small Time said it best. It was my Project Veritas video.
That's what I was laughing about.
Exposing Del Rey.
Anyway, Matt, what was your number 7?
My number 7 is the man, the myth, the legend, John Ostrander. When his stamp of approval was on a comic book, you knew it was going to be solid. His only swing and a miss really was Dawn of the Jedi. I really think he was flawless other than that. I mean, to be honest, it's so funny because I never took notice that much of comic writers.
Mm-hmm.
But I just, over time, I realized it was the same. When I found out it was the same guy who was writing all this stuff that I loved, I was like, whoa, wait a minute. It's all Ostrander.
He's a little higher on that
story. And I mean, and even when I was against the idea, I was totally against Star Wars Legacy. When they talk about it, like the fans in the forums were totally either for it or against it, and heavy both ways. I was probably one of the loudest on the forums who was against it. Mm-hmm. And they said, just give us a chance. Just give it a chance. I was like, it's going to suck. It's a bad idea. It's a terrible idea. I don't want this. I remember they came out with the when it first came out, they came out with the the issue 0, which basically just sets up what the universe is about, and kind of what things are, something like that. And I was thinking, this looks like garbage. Looks like garbage. It's gonna suck. And then before I even got to the first 6 issues, I was like, all right, I'm interested. And then I was like, wow, this is good. And it took a lot because I was totally against it from the very get-go, and then he turned me into being. It's one of the best comic books. It's in my top 10 best comics.
Jeremy, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think John Ostrander is the only comic book artist within Dark Horse that was actually able to make good War 6-issue miniseries.
Yeah,
because
I don't mind KOTOR's War.
Really, you don't.
It's not great. It's the worst. But compared to John Jackson Miller's other stuff,
Mhm.
It looks a lot better than Knight Errant, but he wrote the best one by far. Because in my opinion, I remember when Legacy ended, and you're like, "What happened? Things aren't settled," and then war happened.
Right.
And,
And even Dawn of the Jedi War. Dawn of the
I
Jedi War is the
believe
best.
that was
Mhm.
Randy Stradley knew it was a 50 issue series, but he said, let's do a mini series. So save that story. I believe that's how it went. So Ostrander ended it and then did the mini series just to get, because Legacy was selling like hotcakes.
Mhm.
That's seriously, that's why Legacy 2 got made, because it was such a big seller for Dark Horse.
Legacy 2 is not bad.
No, it's not.
It's pretty good. That was
All
my
right,
favorite
so-
thing at the
Masses.
end there.
So the masses at 7 have John Jackson Miller at 3.96,
I'm fine with that.
19,707.
So
So after
he's
one
a
match,
really good guy.
they have a good one.
Okay. We're moving on to number 6. Or are we number 5?
6.
Number 6.
6.
I can
So-
count.
Number 6, I had James Lucino over at number 6
Okay.
for a plethora of reasons.
I'm not going to
um,
say where he is on my list, but he's
I-
on my list.
We're at the point in the list where I can see arguments for everybody on this being high or higher. So wouldn't be surprised if the names I'm throwing out at you guys are going to be a little different. I know my 1 and 2 are already different than most of you, but no, Lucino,
I know what your 1 is.
everybody knows my 1. Lucino, he just did a wide range of books from different eras. Obviously, New Jedi Order being one of it. If you wrote New Jedi Order, I'm probably putting you on this list somewhere.
Yeah.
But also, obviously, Darth Plagueis is another one of those standout books for him, and I don't think that one can be really ignored by anybody.
I'll tell you what. My dad hasn't read a Star Wars book since the Bantam era. Picked up Darth Plagueis, read it, and now he's reading every EU book.
I believe it. It has that power, that same power where, in Twin Sons, we like to try and direct people to a good place to start based on what they like. If they don't have anything in particular, we'll say, Heir to the Empire, trilogy being one of those standouts. But Darth Plagueis is another one of those that, like, if you're a old enough person who understands, what you're reading, okay, your comprehension's well up there. Yeah, Darth Plagueis is definitely one of those go-to books. I'm like, this will get you hooked on Star Wars reading.
And it also, in my opinion, Plagueis works really well as your first book because it's a book that not only holds up on a reread after you've read other stuff, but actually gets better when you have, when you have read Shadowhunter and you know the connections, or when you've read Council Acts of War and you know the connections, or you've read Jango Fett Open Seasons and you know the connections. Like, it's because it presents these things like they're kind of like, you get like a page or two about these stories and they're kind of like mentioned in passing, right? So when you're reading for the first time, it does a good job of like explaining, oh yeah, this is what happens, and this is the results of it. But then when you go back and reread it, having already read those stories, you're just like, oh wait, that's how that fits in. That's you get the cause and effect now, the relationship that they have. And there's no other author that I think that's better at doing that.
Right.
Okay.
Who's next up on the chop block?
Dylan.
My number 6 is Drew Karpyshyn.
Okay. He's a bit higher on mine.
Yeah, he got bumped down because I remembered some other people. He was obviously a little bit higher. But, I mean, Bane trilogy, fantastic.
Right.
Revan, and I actually don't like Annihilation as like a lot of other people do. I don't think it's a bad book. It just wasn't. It wasn't for me.
It's one of my favorite books.
It just wasn't for me. I didn't connect with this. I didn't connect with the main character basically. So it was fine, but not up there. But even still, he's such a good storyteller. And then even looking past that, he is he was behind the stories of the KOTOR games and is on the also of the Star Wars: The Old Republic, where he still writes. I believe some of those. There are 1 or 2, I think, of those short stories we've gotten since decanonization that were written by him. One of the more prolific and mainly because of that, like the more long tenured authors that we have, that he's technically speaking still writing Star Wars Legends today.
Yep. No, for those reasons, he'll be on my list somewhere higher too. But he is also, for outside of Star Wars, he was also responsible largely for the writing behind the first 2 Mass Effect games, which were also very popular from a storytelling standpoint.
Mhm.
So he's a very good author, no doubt about it.
All right. My number 6. Archie Goodwin. One of the grandfathers of the EU. Archie Goodwin just is really classic Star Wars to me. I love most of what he wrote for the Marvel Comics, although he made a continuity error that unfortunately stuck, which Luke suddenly has his lightsaber again between Empire and Jedi, his blue lightsaber, and I could see Abel G. Pena fixing that with like a little short story that he just found a lightsaber somewhere. But as of this point, that really bothers me, and I think he loses steam after Empire Strikes Back. And it seemed like he was kind of done. But his stuff, his art, his basically retelling of A New Hope, I think is really good, with like Mosep Benid and all that. The voice of Jabba. I really like the Jackson and all that Don Juan Quixote. It's so goofy, but it's so classic. And basically, all those comics leading up to Empire Strikes Back, I think, are pretty solid. I mean, Valance, another great character. He wrote all these great characters that only in recent years are really starting to see like some traction. I mean, they put like taken Valance and put him in the new canon. It's really recently that people are starting to appreciate Archie Goodwin, and I think his stuff for the most part is well worth your time. Also, his comic strips are pretty good too. I forgot to
Goodwin. I didn't think you. Wow, that's a long. Great.
That's a good name. Definitely.
I don't have him on there. He should have been there. I also don't have True Carpation. I should have put him on there. I just forgot. I put this thing together last minute. So,
well. Who do you have at 6?
Who do I have at 6?
Yeah,
well, who do I have at 6 is your number 6, Brian. It's James Luceno. Same reasons, but I want to say you did not talk about Labyrinth of Evil. Shame on you.
That's right.
Oh, yep.
It is such an amazing novel.
Here's the thing. I know he's going to be on lists. I'm not going to name everything he did.
Well, I think you should at least name one of the best books out there. I mean,
Labyrinth of Evil is great.
Dark Plague is his. But oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. What a thrilling romp was Labyrinth of Evil. You talk about being, the lead-in novel to episode 3. They weren't kidding. It is the must-read novel, man.
Oh, yeah.
It is action.
I remember
all the way up, leads all the way up at episode 3, and it says to be concluded. And you're like, oh,
so
it's
good.
Just so good.
There was a donation event we did in Phoenix where Labyrinth of Evil was one of the books we had up for possibly giving out. And I remember distinctly that one of the kids came up with one of their parents and they saw the title on the book and said no from the title. And it just hurt because I knew how good that book was. And I'm just like, oh, you're missing out.
No. Oh, that's terrible.
So I felt so bad. I was like, please come back when you're older and get this book.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
I remember when Labyrinth of Evil came out. It was such a big deal.
Yeah, terrible. No, they shouldn't have. But the only swing and a miss he had, which was a so-so book, was Cloak of Deception. And I'm really shocked because every other novel he makes is just gold. And this one was meh. I mean, it's not bad, but it's not that good either. And it was just shocking that it came from maybe Luceno fell asleep one night and his wife goes, hey, I can type too. I don't know what happened, but it just didn't have it's weird, right? It didn't have the It didn't have you engaged. It didn't have you going, I got to read the next chapter. It's more like, all right. I mean, okay.
I don't know. I disagree. I really like Cloak of Deception.
I seem to recall that about you. Yeah.
it's my least favorite of Lucino's books, but I'll take it over quite a few other authors' works. A certain someone who referred to people who didn't like her work as Talifans.
Wow.
You know,
Wow. Okay. All right. All right. Brown nose.
So I guess as for the
anyway.
masses, they have our number 6, and the as Matthew Stover, 3.98, 36,733 people have left a review on one of his books.
Man, that's another one I didn't think about. He may have made my list.
Mhm.
But
I considered
again,
him too.
but
I guarantee you none of you
Shadow
thought of
Point
my
is
number.
so bad.
That's crazy.